Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim show. Very, very excited about today's show. I'm looking out my window. It is a beautiful, sunny morning here in Seattle with the first frost. It is the first frost. We have a glazed yard I'm looking out on, and it is quite lovely. But what is even more lovely than that is today's guest, who I just recently met. I think it was about a month ago, and I am shocked that we had not met before because his work is spot on. His attitude is lovely. His personality and mission are just gem-like. I mean, I cannot wait to meet today's guest in person and give him a big high five and potentially even a hug if he is willing, because he just is a great guy. He's been doing work all around the world for many, many years. And his message is one that I think will resonate with a lot of you and help you to live radically better. He is a board-certified practicing internist and a New York Times best-selling author twice. He's been on PBS. He's been on the Dr. Oz show. He's worked with Dr. Mike Roizen. He's just doing all kinds of fun stuff, and he combines cooking, nutrition, and he's got a really interesting message. He tries to break down barriers for some guys, because, sometimes us guys are like, I don't need to go see the doctor. I don't need to worry about my health. Give me another beer. So he tries to help fix that problem. And I am just so delighted to welcome him to the show and to introduce him to you. Dr. John Puma, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Jonathan. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, Dr. Puma, before we dig into your new book, which is really exciting because it comes out the exact same day my new book, The Calorie Myth, comes out. Your book is called Refuel and is just a wonderful compliment. So I would encourage everybody, when you go to Amazon, to pick up a copy of The Calorie Myth, or Barnes & Noble. Grab a copy of Refuel as well. The more, the merrier. There's certainly no shortage of bad information in there, so let's crowd it out with good information. But John, before we dig into that, your story is just fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit of how you went from Little John to Dr. Puma?
My mom could do that best. But I was lucky to go to college and then to medical school, trained in internal medicine, and get on the fast track in medical ethics, where I did the first fellowship in the country for physicians who wanted to train in medical ethics and general internal medicine at the University of Chicago. But as I helped to develop with Dr. Mark Siegler at the university the field of medical ethics, I became really overweight myself, and I spent a lot of time trying to help patients and doctors deal with problems near the end of life, but found I didn't pay attention to my own health and didn't know what to say to my own patients who were overweight. So I got off that track, went to cooking school, learned to cook, came back, started Chef Clinic, and then helped Mike Roizen develop the Real Age diet and cooking the Real Age way. And more recently have been interested in the Chef MD concept of food as medicine, particularly culinary medicine. And Mike Roizen and I taught the first cooking and nutrition course for medical students in the country at SUNY. And then later I was able to teach culinary medicine in the first clinical course at DMU. So my interest, Jonathan, is really in allowing people to use not just food as medicine, but to take control of their lives in new personal ways that they haven't before, and that medicine really hasn't given them a shot at.
Dr. Puma, why? So you mentioned a great point there, which is medicine hasn't given them a shot at. This idea as food as medicine to many non-physicians seems radically self-evident. Of course, what we eat impacts our health, but it seems like there still is some doubt about that in the medical community. Why is that?
I think, Jonathan, it's two reasons. First, nutrition really hasn't had the very careful, hard science look that infectious disease or cardiology or orthopedic surgery have. We haven't considered it as seriously, I think, as a profession as we need to. And then the second reason is that a lot of physicians simply haven't been trained in the power that food can deliver to patients and the meaning that it has for patients and the joy and actually both preventive and therapeutic benefits it can have. So I think that those two reasons together have added up to what we're seeing in the broader public, the great interest in in cooking, in farmers markets, in doing it yourself. Even the makers movement is connected to this. So we're experiencing a renaissance in the power of food as medicine, and to combine that with nutrition in a way that actually helps to prevent and treat disease with what I might add is often fantastically tasting, delicious dishes. Well, that's like the best of both worlds.
I love, Dr. LaPuma, that you use the word renaissance and that your message is always one of positivity and deliciousness, because it does seem like over the past 40 years, if the mainstream medical community has, quote unquote, taught us anything, it's that we should almost fear food and go out of our way to consume as little of it as possible, when it seems that the modern research, to your point, is actually saying, no, you need to go out of your way to eat more of the right, delicious, whole, natural foods. Is that fair?
It is. The right fuel for your body can actually make it a super efficient machine, which is especially important for men who have not been taught that or brought up in the culture of the idea that food can be fuel that can either be high octane fuel, the kind of fuel that you really want, or an 81 that it really ought not go into anybody's tank. So I think that the medical literature has often been filled with analogies to food that identify it as etiologic, that is, causing disease. And medicine has been focused on that. But there are increasingly powerful new research studies, not just in the medical literature, but also in the culinary literature, in the agricultural literature, and actually in the biotech literature, that point to the power that food can have for common conditions. 70% of heart disease is preventable with environmental modification, including that of dietary intake. 80% of many of cancers probably are preventable with environmental changes, including that in nutrition. And those kinds of data are shocking to people, but in fact, food can be some of your most powerful medicine, and exercise, to your point, is often just as powerful. In fact, both ought to be written on prescription slips.
I love that. And I love, Dr. LaPuma, that you brought up these other areas of interest, because that's one of the things that has personally shocked me in my own research journey. And that is field, for example, you mentioned agriculture and culinary art, but things like neurobiology and the cutting edge research around gut bacteria and just gastroenterology in general, where there's nutrition somewhat taught as a vertical, and then neurobiology. And often neurobiologists don't talk to nutritionists, but if you look at the neurobiology research and you look at how edible things affect neurobiology in a way that affects appetite regulation and hormone stimulation, you start to see that nutrition and food, oh my gosh, it is way bigger than what we may have initially thought.
No question about it. And I think men and women respond to the idea of nutrition differently. Men, and we see that in comfort food, for example. Women prefer comfort foods often that are desserts, that are chocolate or ice cream or sweets. Men prefer comfort foods that are meals, meatballs and spaghetti and meatballs and meatloaf and roast chicken, large pizzas. That these are comfort foods for men. And so what food means to us psychologically is very important to how we metabolize it and how we consume it. Men specifically respond to food and to programs that are engineered, as you point out, for their brain, for the idea that food is something that men can think of in the ways that are valuable to us. which are about stamina and strength and being able to take care of ourselves and others. That kind of notion for men is a central tenet to how men can begin to re-understand what goes in their body comes out as either, for example, testosterone or estrogen.
Dr. LaPuma, I'm so happy we've bridged this gap here into to talking specifically about your approach specifically to men, and you have a phrase you say, men don't diet, men refuel, because I think both for our male listeners, this is obviously going to be very helpful, but maybe even more so for our female listeners, because Dr. LaPuma, I can't tell you how often I hear our female listeners, who about 80% of our listenership are female, saying, this I'm focusing on food, I love it, but I just can't get my husband or my partner to care. I just cannot get them to care. There's like, whatever. How have you found, because your new book's called Refuel, it's very much focused around talking to men on men's terms about taking control of their health. How have you found to make men care about their health?
You know, the way to make men care about their health is to meet them where they are. What do most men care about? And bear in mind, these are big generalizations, but in each of these generalizations, there's a kernel of truth that I think may resonate with listeners. And it is, to return for a moment, what men care about is getting strong, building stamina, having sex, looking and feeling better, having sex drive. Men don't care really about their cholesterol levels or their blood pressures or their blood sugars. They care a little bit about maybe getting a heart attack or a stroke, especially if their dad or their brother or their uncle had a heart attack, or a guy at work had a heart attack. It kind of begins to bring it into focus. But if you meet men where they are and use the language that they understand, then you can actually reach them about going to the doctor, about getting their blood pressure and blood sugar and cholesterol checked, about having more energy to do the things that you as a woman want to do around the house, outside together in the park, at playing tennis, whatever kinds of activities you like to do, but your guy doesn't have energy for. The way to reach him about that and to reach him about getting to the doctor is, for my plan, to do it with him, to do the Refuel plan with him. But actually, any kind of program that he wants to do together, you as a woman ought to consider doing as well, and speaking to him in ways that he understands. For example, in our program, we found specific phrases that were especially helpful to men that women could use, and specific phrases that we found were not. Like the encouraging phrases on appearance are, "I can tell you lost weight, especially from the side." Men like to hear that. On encouragement, we found, "You can do it," or "You look great," or "I'll do the shopping for any recipe you want to try." These are helpful things that men want to hear. And if a man has a little bit of success, say, "I don't want to lose you," or "The kids really like your dinner tonight." Those kinds of things are positive for men. They like to hear it. So when they they make a little bit of an effort, then they get rewarded by the woman in their life who says, "You know what? I recognize that you're doing something positive for both of us, not just you." The ways to discourage men are being judgmental, like, "Don't lose too much weight," or "Are you really going to eat that?" You know, we've all had that. We've all heard that too. But those aren't the things that help men, or for that matter, help women. And negativity kind of can squash men when it doesn't look like that they can. So the kinds of things you want to say are positive, are reinforcing, are helpful in the sense that you're in it together and that you're partners. This, of course, is a lot easier to say than to do, but it starts by simply saying, "Look, men need easy, have an easy program. The program I designed for men that we tested in a beta test and presented at Stanford and South by Southwest, and that the Refuel book is about, is very simple. It's, men need easy. We put men on 2 days a week of 50 grams of carbs or less, 3 liters of citrus water every day, and 5 minutes of high intensity interval training, 5 minutes, aerobic and strength every day. And we went through 3 phases and taught them simple sleep and stress habit changes. And men were, blown away. Their energy levels went through the roof. 75% of them enhanced sleep quality, 75% increased muscle mass, 57% improved erectile function, which is, I pointed out, is what men really care about. And the men who had a woman who was willing to help, who could help with the shopping, who could maybe help with the idea that dinner could be for everybody, that we don't have to eat separately, of course, who could exercise with their man, actually did even better. They did even better than the average 11-pound weight loss of over 24 days. And it was because women were partners. And I think that, Jonathan, is what men are looking for. If they have a simple, easy plan and they have a woman to help them, they do even better.
Dr. LaPuma, those tips are extremely helpful and those results are astounding. Before we close, I want to get a little bit more metaphysical and get your opinion on something, because this has been my personal experience. And that's what you just described is obviously true in the sense that men want to be winners, right? Like there's this innate, that's what kind of testosterone does, right? Like the more testosterone you have, in a sense, these are all gross generalizations, right? But there's a kernel of truth, as you said, makes you want to win. It's kind of a competitive hormone. And so often I recall a specific story where I was with a group of friends, and this was a different time in my life. So I was eating slightly differently, but in this specific context, we were all eating, and I asked to make I was like, oh, I want this other thing, which is healthier. And the other men were like, hey, be a man. What are you doing? And there's almost this stigma where if you take care of your health, which is really what enables you to be the best man, and of course the best woman as well, but the best man you can be, men make you feel like you're being less of a man. What's the deal with that?
There can be that problem, Jonathan, and I think it's because men don't like the idea of getting smaller. And the whole idea of the language of dieting is about eat less and exercise more. And that kind of, if you're choosing a salad and everybody else is having the prime rib, that feeds into the, eat less, exercise more. But as you know, eat less, exercise more doesn't work. Men respond to very gender-specific behavioral strategies, and they don't know, for the most part, that the fat packed inside their bellies is converting the testosterone their testes make into estrogen. And when they learn that and learn a little more about how their bodies work and how they can build muscle and hold on to that testosterone, then they become a little more interested in protein in the center of the plate, in healthier fat, in more green vegetables, in protein and vegetables at every meal, in trying the 3 liters of citrus water a day, in using a 6-inch plate at home because it looks full. They become more interested. If we just teach them a little bit about how their bodies work, it's amazing how men respond. And then what they become competitive about is like, who can eat the slowest?
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, Dr. LaPuma, it's very easy to tell that there is a wealth of very, very great clinical evidence-based work here, and also some really practical and helpful, immediately useful tips in the upcoming book, which is coming out New Year's Eve, correct?
That's right. Together, we're going to hit the New York Times list together, Jonathan.
I love it. Well, and the book is called Refuel, correct?
You bet. And we're going to be helping men all year long. I just cannot wait to help men get on the right track and help women get on the right track with them, because men and women who do this together, a woman who's willing to help her man get fit boy, that's a winning combination.
Well, and Dr. LaPuma, I want to highlight something, and that's, I bet our female listeners would also be well served to read this book, because if nothing else, it's a bit like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. If you can understand how your man is thinking, you could probably help him and then help the whole family as a result even more effectively.
Absolutely. And I know that we both know Christiane Northrup. Dr. Northrup is an OBGYN in Maine, and she said it was the one book that women should give to men in the new year. And apparently Dr. Oz has said the same thing. We'll see. But I'm so grateful for their support. And I do think that women will learn a lot if they read this book and nudge men in a way that men actually want to be nudged.
I love it. I love it. And where can we learn more about the book, potentially pre-order it, all that fun stuff?
Oh, please come to my website, which is drjohnlapuma.com or refuelmen.com. And of course, the book is going to be everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound. We'd love to have you on our team and help make this something that is a movement that helps men get healthy, for men and for women together.
I love it. Well, Dr. LaPuma, thank you so much for this message of simplicity, of science, of positivity, and of helping people where they're at, which is great. It's not a bunch of shoulds and you should do this. It's much more sensitive and then therefore much more effective. So thank you for all the work you do to help so many live so much better, Dr. LaPuma. It's much appreciated.
Jonathan, what a pleasure to speak with you.
Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation as much as I did. Again, our guest today is the brilliant and caring Dr. John LaPuma. Check him out at drjohnlapuma.com or just do a web search for that, and especially check out refuelmen.com, because that's where you can learn more about his book, which comes out the exact same day as The Calorie Myth, this New Year's Eve. So be sure to grab them both, and remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.